The Wonderful World of Darklords. The Peddler's Tales. The Gummi Bears. Enclosed, a small vial of reddish-purple liquid and an invoice for 600 gold pieces. Before I left Gravity Falls, I made a final trip through its town square, where the folk were setting up for some sort of summer carnival. With all of the eye-catching booths and rigged games about, I should not have been surprised to hear a familiar voice. This time, I was the first to approach while he shouted his pitch to anyone who would listen.
You there! Hungry? I've got just what you need to get through a long summer day right here in this jar.
It was clear that no one was hungry, at least not for what he was selling. The townsfolk were veering out of their way to avoid him. I could not keep a smile from my face as I approached. The past few months had been bracing, to say the least, and the peddler was a welcome sight. Far less appealing were his wares. Jars and jars of lumpy, yellowish glop. I should have known you'd be here, I said. But the food cart is a change. What happened to your inventory?
My good friend! I'm happy to see you again, but I'm afraid I have very little in stock, other than this nourishing creamed corn. If only you had run into me earlier, I had a true rarity in my possession. An unbelievably lifelike automaton. It could have passed for a living halfling or gnome at a glance. It had such cute little cheeks, you would have loved it. Unfortunately, it also had a crudely severed cord hanging from its simulacrum of a backside, and this convinced certain cynics among the authorities that my collector's item had been acquired illegitimately.
Heavens. Perish the thought.
I had to offload the item quickly, so I contacted a business associate named Santiago, and he directed me to the proprietor of the Mystery Shack. I came as quickly as I could. I had to leave most of my inventory in storage.
Wait, you mean Stanford Pines? He was willing to buy a clockwork halfling? It was difficult for me to imagine the two agreeing on a price, and I had a brief mental image of them haggling in the Mystery Shack for days until they both passed out from sleep deprivation.
Well, he was willing to trade for it. He spun me a tale of a shadowy establishment known only as the Club, where the elite of Gravity Falls dine on a rare local delicacy. He said he'd come into a sturdy trunk full of this delicacy, but had misplaced the key to its lock, so he was willing to trade it as is for the automaton.
I rolled my eyes. You mean that he stole the trunk and then couldn't get the lock open, so he was as motivated to trade as you were? You two deserve each other.
Hardly. That automaton was a real treasure, one that will no doubt make money for Mr. Pines for years to come once he's obscured its origin with one of his fanciful stories. I, on the other hand, laboriously forced open that accursed trunk to find nothing but jar after jar of creamed corn. I tried selling some back to Mr. Pines, but he told me he'd had enough of the stuff for a lifetime. So, here I am, selling off as much as I can before I leave for better prospects.
The peddler had no goods other than creamed corn on display, but I wasn't ready to give up quite that easily. Even his most ludicrous items had been of some value in the past, in contrast to much of what I'd seen in the Mystery Shack, and I was certain that he had something of interest. Or perhaps I simply wanted to assuage the sting of knowing that I had lost the chance to buy a ring of spell storing for the price of a cart horse. I'm afraid I've already eaten, so no creamed corn for me, I lied, and the peddler's ladle wilted in disappointment. But you said you had little else in stock. You must have something to show me, right? Why not make your pitch? Whatever patter you've got for me, it has to be better than Stanford Pines and his grizzly corns and Sasquatches. The peddler made a tremendous show of turning around and debating with himself.
Is it possible she'd believe in? Well, she is a discerning and valued customer. Well, there's no harm in showing her, and if she doesn't credit the story, it's her loss.
I mentally prepared myself. This was going to be quite a gimmick. He turned back to me and produced a vial of purplish liquid from under the lid of his cart.
I shouldn't be telling you this,
he began.
But gummy bears are real.
Welcome to Wonderful World of Darklords. I'm Tom.
I'm Rachel.
I'm Chris.
And we're discussing how to convert Disney movies to Ravenloft Domains of Dread, except sometimes we can't. And when that happens, we have The Peddler's Tales. Today's a story, Gummi Bears. Not the candy. For those of you who are not 90s kids, who are not watching cartoons in the, 1982.
A little later than that, I think.
84, something like that. Anyway, it was early 80s. There was a Disney animated series called Gummi Bears, like the delicious chewable candy. And this is a series we want to look at for Peddler's Tales because, number one, this was the very first Disney animated show. So we feel as worth celebrating, and especially in the context of small screen summer, that is something we want to get out there, a little bonus bit of small screen Disney animated series content covering the very first Disney animated show. Number two, this is gonna sound crazy. I'm gonna sound like a crazy person.
I love
but
crazy.
The 1980s Disney Gummi Bears show actually was a really cool fantasy universe that actually fits D&D very well. And it doesn't fit the specific needs of the Ravenloft setting, where we do our normal thing, so we're not doing a full domain here, but that's the wonderful thing about Peddler's Tales. It lets us do these properties that don't make a classic domain.
Also, number 3, Kris really wanted the peddler to sell D-gummy berry juice.
Yes.
So, that was...
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you were going to do a Marvel-style, cameo from, a deep cut from the lore from Disney, and have the peddler come up with an item, it would be gummy berry
Gummy
juice.
berry juice.
That's, yeah.
It was featured in 2017 DuckTales.
Yes, it was, which is so good. Like the other Peddler's Tales, this one is going to start with that object, with the peddler and the negotiating, discovering a magical object, which is the aforementioned gummy berry juice, which that is a very weird, you're thinking now like a blended slurry of gummy bears. 90% of you.
Oh my! And the show they're... Oh, well, I just went to a horrifying visual place. Okay, all right.
But that's not what gummy berry juice is in this context, and we will explain what gummy berry juice is in a minute. However, you'll notice all of our other
Body
Peddler's
horror
Tales...
was not on my bingo card for this one, okay.
all of our other Peddler's Tales are a name. So we have Peddler's Tales, Cruella de Vil. Peddler's Tales, Shanyu. This one's Peddler's Tales,
Alameda Slim.
Alameda Slim.
Don't forget the man, the myth, the legend.
Peddler's Tales, Gummi Bears, because unlike these others, it is not centered around an NPC. That's more than anything most of the Peddler's Tales are, there's a particular character we want to cover in this kind of Ravenloft NPC context, but they don't fit the Dark Lord domain framework. But this one, it's not the character. There's not a specific gummy bear we want to talk about. It's the world. It's the setting that we really think is something, as crazy as this sounds, could be a really interesting addition to your Ravenloft or otherwise D&D game.
Hear us out.
Hear us out. Let me finish.
I really like setting expectations with no, you're gonna think I'm full of shit, but this episode's gonna be interesting. Just hold on.
So, to prove this episode's interesting, to make that case, please, hear me out. Let me finish. Let me explain the basic setup of the world, of the setting, of the mid-1980s Disney Gummi Bears cartoon.
They bounce here and there and everywhere.
So, the premise of the show is that you have this human boy who lives in a medieval, Disney medieval fairy tale kind of kingdom. And in this kingdom, there are legends of these ancient magical creatures called gummy bears. But the boy believes in them and discovers there is this small clan of gummy bears still living in the forest. And the backstory eventually get is that there was this once thriving, colorful bear, sentient talking bear civilization called the Great Gummis. They had cities, and they had wonders, and they had magic items, they had powerful magic, and they coexisted with humans in this area called Gummi Glen. But humans grew jealous of their power, tried to attack them to steal their magical secrets. So the majority, there was the Great Gummi Exodus, which is a thing on the wiki page.
The Gexodus.
The
sad times.
And the majority of gummy bears got on ships and sailed across the sea to lands unknown. including one place to like their colony. They had 3 colonies. So they sailed to their colonies, including one called North Gumbria. Our main characters were the like little group, the remnant of gummy bears who stayed behind to like prepare for the return, to like sort of keep the magical infrastructure functioning, and to just like kind of observe the humans and let the others know when it was safe to return to their ancestral homeland of Gummy Glen.
We repeat, Gummi Bears.
Gummy Bears. The chewy candy.
Yeah. And it's very, like, I think what people don't realize about the Gummy Bears is that the premise of this show basically is that humanity is in like a fallen state and we are being continually judged by the Gummy Bears,
Yes.
who are continually deciding it is not yet time for all of like our ancient wonder to return because humanity is still corrupt.
Yes.
That like that is the unspoken backstory of every episode of Disney's Gummy Bears.
Yes.
And in the centuries since the Gexodus, that this small like, clan remaining of, I think it's like 5 or 6 or 7 gummy bears who are kind of our main characters.
And 2 of them are girls.
Yes,
This is very groundbreaking.
They've lost a lot of the like lore. They've lost a lot of the magical secrets. They've lost a lot of the technology. Because believe it or not, there was a lot of steampunk in this Disney Gummy Bear show. And the main character, the boy, the human sort of protagonist, is kind of helping them rediscover it. So that's a big thrust of the show, is they are rediscovering some of the lost secrets of their people. They are like learning some of the lost spells, repairing and reviving some of the lost machines. And just, that's a really cool fantasy setting.
Yeah. And I need to reiterate, listeners who don't believe us.
Yes,
like,
Google it.
This is not a thing that's like, oh, well, if you read between the lines, it's all there. No, this was right there.
Yeah.
This was the story. Like, it came out in dribs and drabs over the course of the series, but this was the story.
Yes.
Yeah, and we should talk about, I don't know if it's in the outline, but like also I think the gummy berries are a huge part of the setting as well. Like on an episode to episode level, there are these gummy berries that can be made into gummy berry juice with a secret recipe. And the juice gives the gummy bears the ability to bounce around.
Here and there and everywhere.
True. We should have done the whole premise thing as we should have just converted the theme song into like a dialogue and tried to deliver it real outro.
They're dashing, but are they daring?
Mm-hmm.
What would you compare these adventures to, Rachel?
I can't.
I don't think
it's
anything.
beyond me.
But yeah, so then like if you're a human and you drink gummy berry juice, then you get super strong, but only for a minute. And so the main antagonist of the series is after gummy berry juice because he thinks that it will, make his armies unstoppable. And so that sort of like in microcosm, if you will, it encapsulates the struggle between the gummy bears and humanity that is like the overarching premise of the show. So like on the micro scale, we're fighting over the meager power of gummy berries and gummy berry juice. There's this kind of ignorant power mad human trying to, violate the domain of the gummy bears to steal their power in this very small way.
Also, I need to point out, while we're talking about Duke Igthorn and his army, he has an army of ogres, and if you go to the ogre page on the Disney Villains Wiki, it lists both the Gummy Bears ogres and the Once Upon a Time ogres as though they are the same species. So when Rumpelstiltskin was fighting in the Ogre Wars, and then later when Belle's Kingdom was fighting in the Ogre Wars, one can assume they were fighting alongside the Gummy Bears.
Yes, it was fighting against Duke Igthorn. If they had just one more season of Once Upon a Time, they could have gotten sexy Duke Igthorn.
Yeah, because Lord knows that show didn't overstay its well.
Yeah, right.
They needed another season.
What sexy, square-jawed 25-year-old actor would you cast as Gruffy Gummy?
Oh, definitely Taylor Kitsch, because he can do, like, the glower. Yeah.
Okay.
He's the bad boy.
So, we are not taking the kind of human gummy bear setting, which is called Castle Dinsmore. That is the sort of kingdom that the gummy bears are interacting, that this main character, boy, is from. Because that's nothing. That's just like it's the human kingdom. We are instead offering the gummy bear story and framework as something you could slot into any setting. And we are specifically going to be looking at Ravenloft. So we are going to have, in the write-up for this, a chart of different domains and kind of the role Gummi Bears could play in a couple of those domains. But one of the neat things, I know this is Kris's idea, is even connecting that Gexodus, that Great Gummi diaspora, with the specific origin of a Ravenloft domain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the idea here is that the Great Gummis, whatever the inciting incident was that caused them to flee, is connected to an act of darkness that pulled this land into Ravenloft. So what you end up with then is the Gummi remnant, which is the equivalent of the characters we see on the show. They are actually separated by more than distance from the Great Gummis. The rest of the Gummis have left. And so this gives you whatever the origin of the domain is, that's tied to where the rest of the Gummis went. And that's not necessarily something that the remnant knows. And I would say you could also turn the dial on that of how ambiguous it is. It would be a great twist, a great discovery, if you really for some reason want to kick these little bears around, just to watch them bounce. You could let them know, that they're never coming back because they're gone forever because they're on another plane. Or you could leave it ambiguous. I think on the show they get some drama out of where are the Great Gummis? Are they ever coming back? So you could leave it ambiguous whether they're even in Ravenloft anywhere, or they've passed on to somewhere else.
Yeah, I love that because it really kind of... I can't believe we're talking about Gummi Bears with this, but...
This is why we had to do this, listeners.
It really ramps up the mythic and almost religious aspect of it, if it is this unobtainable thing.
Yes, if it's another world.
Yeah.
They're literally...
They will never be reunited with them. And, it's based in fact, but it might as well be a myth.
So, the story that I've run into a couple places of why there is a cartoon called Gummi Bears is something about, Michael Eisner's sons went to camp and got obsessed with Gummi Bears, and he was like, hey, pitch me a show about Gummi Bears. But that's so vague, it's kind of the liberating. They could do anything they wanted. So they could come up with this, crazy high fantasy show and just have somehow work in Gummi Bears.
I know, it sounds like we've dropped an April Fool's Day episode on the wrong date. I swear
Google
we have.
it. Go to YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, and I know we're getting sidetracked slightly, but the theme song of Gummi Bears is, I think, one of the things it's best remembered for. That is a theme song that if you played it for someone, that would also make them think this is a joke, because that song, it's not the kind of song that you would use as an afternoon or a Saturday morning cartoon show. Particularly, there's a note at the end that is so hard to hit. It's such a musically challenging song, and for no reason.
Now that you mention it, yeah.
And if you want to go on YouTube and look for it, all of the 90s, 80s Disney in the afternoon kind of shows, theme song, absolute fire.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But they could just build a fantasy show, and I think there's a lot of influences. So I read people pointing out the magic potion being that they're trying to get kind of being from Asterix. And I think that probably is a good influence of that. But I think sounds so crazy. There's a lot of Lord of the Rings here, and that having it be they're trapped in Ravenloft and the Great Gummis are actually on this other plane of existence really is almost like the elves sailing to the west of they're not just across the ocean, they are in another world.
I just finished rereading the Chronicles of Prydain in case for whenever we decide to do Black Cauldron, and ripping off Lord of the Rings is very popular at this point, so...
So we're looking at the whole backstory. More than anything, the backstory. That's what's got hooks in us. That's the thing that's driving us to obsess over this, is this bizarrely great high fantasy backstory for flippin' Gummi Bears. And we're looking at this specifically in the context of putting these in Ravenloft domains. But once again, you could do this in any setting. It's almost a template that you could take a pre-existing D&D setting or setting you're making and have this be part of that setting.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about kind of some of that Gummi stuff, that setting stuff that you could plug into a Ravenloft domain, Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk, whatever. Our main area is Gummi Glen, which is the underground tunnels, and their home base is so cool.
Yeah.
It's they have their big dining room meeting area, and it's under the lake, and there's a big clear roof. So they're it's so cool.
Oh, that's cool. I forgot about that.
And there's all these tunnels. That is, they had these things called this was originally like a city, like an underground city, and now it's like just a handful, like 6 people living there. So you even have all these parts they're exploring, and it's a brilliant plot generator, because this was a big plot generator for the show. Just they're exploring other parts of the city, other parts of the like under tunnels, and they're finding stuff. And there's even sometimes there'll be a thing like the Great Gummis like sealed away monsters or other problems, and then the seals, that was so long ago, the seals get cracked, and like a dragon gets unleashed that was sealed away.
I mean, I even think of this like kind of this underground city thing. You could do all kinds of Underdark stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They found this little patch of the Underdark and made it good.
It's everything you could ask for. Just this one little thing, because what it is, it's like basically an artificial tree in the woods that actually has all these kind of like traps and trapdoors and secret entrances on it. Then you go in, you go underneath. They have that whole system of caves, and then they have like the central part where the Gummis actually live. This is where they keep like the Great Book, which I'm sure we'll talk about. It has like all their history and a bunch of their lore. And then there's all this magical infrastructure, as well as like evil sealed away, as you mentioned. And so it's everything. Like it just plopping this into the middle of any setting gives you like a dungeon, it gives you a home base, and then it gives you not just all these cool magic items and stuff, but also a hidden dimension to the rest of the setting.
Yes.
So like wherever you put this, there are now secret quick tunnels that go to different places that might otherwise be inaccessible in your setting. They allow fast travel between places that otherwise would be a really long journey. And this is all slowly unveiled. So it's not like a binary transformation of the setting all of a sudden, like your little micro setting for your campaign. It gradually allows you to add depth. It gives you a kind of like a Metroid feel, where you're able to like make old locations and situations new again by stacking on new things that the player characters can do, and new things that they know, new ways for them to interact with the environment.
Like the quick tunnels, we're going to come back to that's really important. They basically had a like underground subway system all around the sort of region. And that would be an amazing thing. You could have that right away, or that could be a piece of like Gummi infrastructure you recover. So you like, do the adventure where you learn how to turn these machines back on. And now suddenly you have a fast travel system. You have a subway. And then a second place I think would be really neat to add in is Ursalia. And Ursalia was the capital. It's ruins now. It was the capital city of the Great Gummis. And there's been a couple episodes where it's the whole, they go there and like explore the ruins and find powerful magical artifacts. So it's another one of those. Dungeons and Dragons is built. The like brick and mortar of Dungeons and Dragons is ruined ancient city full of magical treasure. And one more thing I think is worth mentioning, because it makes such a good D&D like adventure setting. And that's a place, as soon as I say the name, you can probably guess the whole thing. That's a place called Gumadoon. And Gumadoon, it was a castle of the Great Gummis, and the Knights of Gumadoon would like train there and live there. And they like were the rear guard protecting the Gexodus. And then they like went back to the castle, and then the wizards there cast a spell, so it would only appear every 100 years for a day. And if they could like check how things were coming.
If you can't come up with an adventure for that, I can't help you. I'm sorry.
Like, holy wow, why are there not more Brigadoon dungeons? Like, I believe there was one in like AD&D. I'll look it up later, but like that's so good. That is such a good dungeon of the castle that appears one day every 100 years. Because it could have all sorts of cool stuff in it, but you have this amazing ticking clock.
Yeah, there's so much here. I just want to point out that like the secrecy of the Gummi Bears and the fact that this is all this sort of lost stuff that still has a remnant kind of protecting it really puts you in a good position, not only to introduce all these great elements, but to explain why the player characters are the only ones, or one of only a few, who know about them and can interact with them. That's one of the things that can sometimes get you down in like a very rich fantasy setting. It's like, if everywhere you go, like anytime you go a couple of miles outside of town, it's like a forgotten tomb and a hidden dungeon and whatever, then the question is always like why someone wasn't here first. But if the relationship to the Gummi Bears or whatever adventure you've had with them is unique, you automatically have that, and like the access to the infrastructure, the knowledge of all these ancient things, all these locations, makes perfect sense. It very organically makes the player characters into the center of this part of the setting, without necessarily making them these huge power players.
Yeah.
So this, you have innumerable options here for giving cool environments where your players can find cool magical secrets. And let's talk about some of those magical secrets. And Kris, you mentioned the Great Book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a really interesting thing that's like the very first episode introduces this. It's basically a big magical book that contains the history of the Gummi Bears. It contains a lot of their magic. It contains a lot of information about, lost artifacts and things like that. And it is also the book in which is written the future of the Gummi Bears as they live it. And they haven't had access to this book for a long time because you need this special amulet to open it. And so the series really kicks off with the Gummi Bears who have been living in, a state of like communal depression as they await extinction, I think it's fair to say. And then this amulet comes along, right? This kid brings them the amulet, and now they can open the book. And, concretely, this gives them access to gummy magic and allows them to rediscover the secrets of the Great Gummis, which facilitates the rest of the series. But also it sort of like symbolically reopens their history to them and allows them to like become part of the continuity of the culture, because they, at the time the series begins, they've basically lost everything of the culture they're supposed to be watching over.
Yeah. If you're listening and thinking about Atlantis, don't worry, we are going to get
Yeah.
Because boy howdy, there are parallels.
Yeah, golly, believe it or not, I sound like a crazy person.
We've got the meme with the red string.
Yes,
yeah.
Gummi Bears.
No, there's no red string.
Got a lot of
it's
Gummi
right
Bears
there.
thumbtacked to a corkboard and a red string connecting them to Lord of the Rings and Atlantis. And so there's the magic, there's spells, so that's a great thing right there. And you even have this, like, it's taking time. They're, like, studying it, they're decoding it, they're translating it. So you can even have the whole, like, sort of the wizard Gummi, like, has learned a new spell. It's not like you get them all in a go. It's a process of learning. And then also, like I said, it's weirdly steampunk. Because the idea is the Great Gummis built a glorious civilization of wonders. So there's, like, they have their airships, sometimes find airships, they find submarines, they'll find all sorts of really cool, potentially, like, interesting for your PCs to play around with pieces of, like, lost Great Gummi technology. And also, to, like, the thing we're going to come back to, there's an episode that's very useful to us where it's specifically, like, this great horn that can blast down stone walls. So speaking of Atlantis, if you want to dig into the idea that some of these things are weapons, and that this was these, like, terrible, these weapons of too great and terrible power, that they have to be sort of sealed away. The Gummi Bears themselves seem to be this inherently magical creatures. Like, in D&D terms, they probably would be a kind of fae, because there is a... okay, so this villain, Lady Bane, and the interesting there is she's not after the gummy berry juice to make her army of ogres super powerful.
So that she can fight Rumpelstiltskin.
She's after gummy magic. Like, she believes in the power of gummy magic, she's gotten some gummy magic, and she's after more gummy magic. And she actually has this, like, magic crystal thing that she's able to drain the life and youth from one of the gummies.
A dark crystal?
Possibly, yes.
Okay.
And it has to be like a gummy and, like, make herself young. And the reveal, she's actually, like, 100 years old, but she's been draining the life of gummies to stay young.
This show.
Yeah, right?
I can't.
The interesting contrast, there's a lot of Atlantis, like, potential DNA. But the interesting contrast here is Atlantis made a really good domain because there was the idea of they brought this on themselves.
Yeah.
Like, that the fall was because of the hubris and arrogance and, like, power hungriness of Atlantis at its height. Whereas here, in the canon, the hashtag Gummi Bears did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Like, they are entirely the victims. Like, their civilization fell because of human, in this case, it'd be like, D&D humanoid, like, greed and jealousy.
Yeah, and when we were planning this out, Tom, you were saying that, like, you were thinking that maybe that could be a kind of question of maybe the Gummi Bears aren't as innocent as they look, and there's something in their history. But Chris, this was a thing that was really important to you.
This was really your thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is a way to do that. And if you are doing, like, a kind of like a silly campy one-shot type of thing, then having the Gummi Bears turn out to be these, ravenous monsters, that makes a lot of sense, and kind of, like, undercut the whole thing. But I think it maybe is more interesting to keep them as the innocents in the situation, because It positions the rest of the world around them as having kind of let them down, which I think is interesting, especially given what we know about the gummy bears, that they're like, they want to be hidden. They don't really want to be approached. They don't want to work with others. And they're not inclined to bring their power to bear, such as it is, to help anybody. They do from time to time. And they do kind of work to protect the castle or whatever, but like they don't want to bring out, ancient gummy war machines to solve problems. The whole reason they got into this, the whole reason that the Gexodus happened in the first place is because they didn't want their power to fall into the hands of those who would use it foolishly. And so I feel like you're in a very strong position of moral authority as the DM with these gummy bears who are like few in number. It is this remnant, but like they left because they didn't want their power corrupted. And in Ravenloft, in a setting where everything around them is pervasively corrupted, I think it's better just to let that judgment stand. And especially because the player characters are at least somewhat implicated in that. Like over the course of a campaign, they'll have had to make some kind of compromises. And also when they're interacting with the gummy bears, very likely at some point they're going to want to use the power and knowledge that the gummy bears have to accomplish some end. And there's no story there if the gummy bears are just like bad guys like everybody else who need to be beaten up so you can take their stuff.
Yeah.
There is a story there if they really are as good and innocent as it seems, and their judgment that this world was too corrupt for their power was right. And then you have to decide, like, do we still try to get access to their artifacts and that sort of thing? So I think it's a case where it's more interesting maybe not to deconstruct it.
Yeah, and even, as you said, chances are that your PCs are going to have made some moral compromises somewhere along the way. But even if you got, like, the sweetest and most innocent band of PCs to ever set foot in Ravenloft, they're still going to have to prove that to the gummy bears who have been burned by humans so many times before, and that's going to be an interesting role-playing challenge. This weirdly goes along with our Gargoyles episode. Like, last remnants of a race that no longer trusts humans. You have to reach out a hand.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of shared DNA, I was thinking actually about, when I was watching Gummi Bears, I was rewatching it for this episode, I was thinking about the Lawn Gnomes parody of gargoyles from Animaniacs. That reminds me a lot of Gummi Bears. So, like,
I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, I don't know if I know that one.
Yeah,
but I'm going to.
You should definitely look it up. Yeah, but I mean, there are definitely similarities between Gummi Bears and gargoyles, and I don't know how on what level there's creative overlap on the shows, but given that it's Disney TV, I imagine there's something in there somewhere, because the similarities are unmistakable.
I know in the original pitch, Greg Reisman was seeing Gargoyles as much more of a Gummi Bears-like show, and then it became more serious as they kept workshopping it.
I mean, I can even see, like, that he's pitching this, and the fact that Gummi Bears was very successful, being able to have that, like, oh, this is like that successful thing you did, 10 years ago, is like Hollywood 101.
Yeah.
And the nice thing here is you have a bunch of different ways this can go. Like, it could be the PCs decide to respect the Gummi Bears and leave them alone. It could be maybe they, like, convince them to let the PCs use some of their stuff. In which case, you've got that, like, kind of dilemma of, like, yeah, we were able to solve this outside problem, but we kind of feel bad because we did push them to do something they didn't want to do. And, like, hopefully they're not complete jerks and they will, like, get the Gummies to agree to it. But you've got that, this is not what they wanted to do. They, like, did this because we kind of browbeat them into doing it. Or maybe they push the Gummies into being more involved in the outside world, but then that does open up a bunch of potential problems of other NPCs now trying to get their stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's just wonderful dilemmas for players. And the great thing is that what the players do, how the players approach the Gummies, it can also connect to that sort of core question the Gummies have. Golly, we sound crazy. Which is that, we have written here, that question of hope. Like, are things getting better? Do we signal the Great Gummis? Like, do we say the time has come to return, or do we just continue waiting? And even that deeper question the Gummies might be struggling with of, are they still out there? And that was a big thing, was they don't even know if there were any Gummy communities still there. If they were the last Gummi Bears on Earth.
Yeah.
And then near the season finale, they're able to, like, signal one of these colonies and get a signal back. So this idea of, like, oh no, that's the hope that, yes, the Great Gummies still are out there and they will return here someday.
And an interesting thing here with the Gummies is that...
Now it's your turn to sound crazy.
There's actually a lot of overlap with the Vistani.
Yes.
There is. Like, as we were talking about the Gummi Bears, I'm actually like, but the Vistani already fill the ecological niche that we're about to fill with colorful bears who bounce.
Who bounce here and there and everywhere.
Because the thing with the Vistani is, like, in the older material, Bingo, there actually was this whole, like, they had a very similar myth. It was a very similar, only kind of reversed, where, like, Gummi Glen was out there and they're the diaspora. Vistani Glen, I guess. That, like, there's the Vistani homeland, and they've been, like, exiled to wander through Ravenloft, and someday they'll be able to return, but not yet. And so there's this same kind of, like, sense of loss and a sense of reaching out for community, and also that fierce tribalism and that fierce, like wanting to keep everybody else out, wanting to hoard our own secrets because we're the only ones that we can trust. Like, the isolationism of the Gummies is a lot like the isolationism of the Vistani and the wanting to hoard their magical secrets. Like, it's a very similar vibe. So we thought it would be cool if, with the Vistani, they know the Gummi Bears are real. They know they exist. Basically, it's up to you as a GM, like, how much they communicate with the Gummi Bears, but they know that there are these fae spirits out there who are, like, kindred spirits to them, and they respect them, and they know, like, all the little things to do with, like, leaving offerings for the Gummies in the right areas as they go through, and, like, the things that they can do to signal to the Gummies that they're safe, and maybe if they're escorting Giorgios with them, you know, maybe if they're doing a job transporting Giorgios, they don't do those things to let the Gummies know it's dangerous right now. And so, yeah, that could be a really interesting way to link the Vistani in with the Gummies, or vice versa, depending on how your campaign's going. You were giving this idea, and I love it. And I love it does tie that Vistani theme of them having this, like, deeper lore and, like, knowing lore about Ravenloft that no one else does. And I love the idea, if I were doing this, it would be like they're, like, totally deadpan about the fact that they're small, colorful bears who bounce. Like, this is just like, yeah, it's just the way it is. It's like, they're bears. They're small bears. They bounce. This Glen, it belongs to the small, colorful bears. The Gummi Bears. The Gummi Bears. If you anger them, they will bounce. They await the return of the Great Gummis. Yeah, like, this is just, like, totally deadpan. This is just the way the world works for them.
What's genius about this, and this is something that comes up on the show, is, like, okay, so there are ogres in the setting. Like, there's all kinds of magical stuff in the setting, but, like, just Gummi Bears, for whatever reason, just Gummi Bears seem like a fairy tale. Like, people don't believe in Gummi Bears. And you kind of have a similar problem doing that kind of story in D&D, right? Because everything is real in D&D. Like, there's so much stuff. And so I think the fact that Gummi Bears sound a little ridiculous helps. And I think that the Vistani don't feel that way helps very elegantly convey that they have a different relationship to them without having to overburden it. Because it's like, the hard part is not tying the Vistani to the Gummi Bears, because as you said, Rachel, like, that this came up organically in conversation with just sort of like, as we're talking this through, they have a lot in common. They kind of feel like they're standing in the same spot in the story. And so it's one of those things where as a storyteller, the challenge is not connecting them. It's keeping them from seeming like two redundant story elements, both kind of occupying the same space. And also, like, if we want to imply all kinds of things about the Gummi Bears, we want to have this, like, big question about the Great Gummis and the whole thing. We don't want there to then be, like, the Vistani running around who are like, oh, yes, our great friends, the Gummi Bears, you know? So it's nice to just have, like, everybody assumes the Gummi Bears are a myth, except the Vistani who just assume them, who just know them to be real. And there is this, like, mutual, like, respect, and, like, they know how to go through each other's land, and, like, they're aware of each other. It allows you to, like, acknowledge that these two should know each other in the history that we're building, without raising the question of, like, well, like, do we need them both? And also, like, if they're good friends, then, like, why don't we just go to our Vistani friend and have them let us use the quick tunnels?
They're not that good friends.
So there's two other points before we kind of transition to talking about our adventures with the Gummi Bears section. And that is one, I have to mention this just because, once again, I cannot believe this is in this show and works so well for, like, a D&D type setting. And there's a group called the Barians, which are like the bear barbarians. Our group of Gummi Bears led by Ursa, who, if this show were up today, would have a lot of fan art. And They are like feral gummy bears. Like, they were driven from their home by humans. They kind of like went into the wild, and now they're like fierce warriors, and they actually want revenge. They like want revenge against the humans.
So these are like your Demona gummy
exactly,
bears.
These are your Demona gummy bears.
Only, presumably not always getting each other killed with their terrible decisions.
So that whole like thing with the magic horn that blasted walls, that was the thing, was the Barians were going to Ursalia to search for that so they could attack the humans. So that could be a fun thing once you've like made these relationships with these gummy bears and Gummy Glen. Then you bring in the Barians, and that's kind of a fun, like, your core gummy bear NPCs are kind of between the PCs and the Barians. Mm-hmm. Of like, yes, they did destroy our home, but here we have these like humanoids we like. So that's like going to be a fun adventure right there. Yeah. And then Kris, with Gummy Berry Juice, like in the write-up I'm doing for it, as a magic item, I'm just kind of doing the very straightforward, it gives you strength and it gives you bouncing here and there and everywhere. It basically like, it acts as a potion of giant strength and also gives you the like abilities of a quickling. But if you wanted to do something more interesting, more complex with that, Kris, you had some really good ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I just, there is a question, even in the show, but I think especially in the world of D&D, of like, why is everybody so worked up about gummy berry juice? Because, I mean, it basically, for a human, it's like a very short duration bull's strength, and that's it, pretty much, which is not like super overpowering. It's not worth committing a genocide of the colorful bears about. So like, so what is the deal with this? I think you could answer that question by saying that gummy berry juice, its effects are dependent on who uses it, and it has to do with like kind of having limited vision. Like basically most beings, including most humans, idea of power is so limited that all they get from drinking gummy berry juice is super strength. And then if they are, the gummy bears get more from it, but then there's also the potential there that there's a lot more to this recipe. There's a lot more to this substance, but that could be sort of part of the lost knowledge and like the lost gummy culture, which would maybe kind of allow you to include this theme in your story of like the humans being short-sighted and trying to seize the gummy bear's power without understanding it. And again, just sort of justify like, why doesn't this guy Igthorn go buy some potions of bull strength if he's so worked up about this idea?
Yeah. Yeah, just I love that it's kind of like that really connects the gummy berry juice to kind of the ideas of the gummy bears having this like deeper wisdom and humans being foolish and short-sighted, that like the humans can't even get the full benefits of this like gummy magic because their idea of power is so limited, or like they don't even know what to do with it. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, there's a thing in the show that I think also helps with that theme. I forget what the device is called, but it's like, it's a big lens that is used to like focus the sun's light, and its main purpose is to be a signaling device. And the Glen gummies are actually able to use it in one instance to briefly communicate with a distant gummy culture, but the message they get back is destroyed before they can read it. But it's a communication device that was left behind with them that can communicate over vast distances. You can also point it at the ground and burn people like ants. And that's why Igthorn wants it, and so they have to destroy it. And so that's another instance of where, like, you don't really need, like, a hill-mounted laser beam. Like, it's cool, but it's not that cool. The ability to communicate nearly instantly from continent to continent in a world with this tech level is world-changing.
Yeah.
But of course, Igthorn sees the laser possibilities, and so you have to break it.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
And we mentioned the idea of like there being these weapons, but this is even if you don't want to have the darker side of it. If you don't want the gummies to be Atlantis, which doesn't make sense in the context of this episode, then it could just be like there's this tech and there was like peaceful purposes for it, but it can be turned into weapons. So like the blasting horn could have been, like this was just for like construction. This was created for a totally peaceful reason, but it can be weaponized. So that question of that gummy tech is still there.
Yeah, and this can lead to a great story beat where if, as will inevitably happen, a piece of technology like this gets out, And so at some point it has to be seized from some evil force. Then the decision about what to do now becomes a referendum on the world that I think player characters could legitimately take different perspectives on. Like, the whole reason the rest of the Gummies haven't come back is because their judgment is this world is still in this fallen state where it's not safe for this power to be here. And so the PCs are going to have to ask on a very practical level, if we wheel this super laser out of here, what are the odds that some horrible being is going to get their hands on it and do a lot of damage? It is Ravenloft, you know?
Yeah, it's like Dracov's looking at that thing like a super laser, you say.
For peaceful purposes.
Most of the Dark Lords actually would look at that and be like, ooh, communication, not Dracov.
No, he'd want a super laser.
That's why Dracov is the first one that comes to mind. He's the one who's like, super laser!
Someone like Aslan would be like, no, I would love to have long-distance communication.
Yeah, or even like Strahd. Frickin' Uruk von Karkov would use that thing for communication. He would use it as a laser.
So, we mentioned up top, one of the things that make this Peddler's Tale different from the others is the others, we are presenting this NPC that you could then put in your game that we think could like generate a lot of cool stories for your players. Whereas this one, it's specifically presenting a setting element. Like this idea, there's the Gummies, there's Gummi Glen, there's the Great Gummis, and you could put them in wherever your game is. It's a fantastic setting element to generate stories, to generate adventures. And we'll talk about some of those adventures you can generate with the Gummi Bears in our next section.
The peddler gesticulated wildly, nearly bumping a jar of creamed corn off his cart as he dove deeper into the details of his story.
No, the lost magic of their ancestors is very powerful, and they have begun to reclaim it since unlocking the Great Book of Gummi. Have I mentioned the Great Book of Gummi? But that isn't how they travel the forest unseen. As I alluded to earlier, there's a network of secret tunnels throughout the countryside. According to legend, these tunnels contain lightning-quick wooden vessels carved into the likeness of hawks. Using these, the Gummi Bears can travel almost instantly to any point within their domain.
But not South Gumpton.
Well, the tunnel is ruined.
Right.
But I've already said too much. These truths, like this prized vial of gummy berry juice, were never even meant for me to hold, let alone to share. But for 600 gold pieces, in light of your eminent trustworthiness, I could let this vial go in the interest of advancing arcane knowledge.
I put my hand on the peddler's shoulder. You have to know how this sounds. Gummi bears are a fairy tale. When my niece was 5, I told her a story about gummi bears. She looked at me skeptically, and then asked her mother whether Aunt Danny had been hit on the head. But I know you, and you haven't led me astray before. In fact, you've been surprisingly helpful. So, I think that either you're joking with me, you're trying to outdo that grifter at the Mystery Shack because you got one over on you, or there really is some powerful magic contained in that vial, but you don't want me to know its real origin, so you're being deliberately ridiculous. If it is a joke, I hope you know that bilking me for 600 gold pieces is hardly going to be conducive to our friendship, so I suggest you stop before it goes too far.
Excellent guesses both, my friend, and I know that you're not one to be taken in by an outlandish story. That's probably why you're getting along so much better here in Gravity Falls than I. Why I came here having heard wild stories of an apocalypse and forests full of bizarre creatures, and even a one-eyed dream demon who was still on the loose. But all of the locals I've spoken to have told me that such foolish stories are absurd, counter to everything they've seen, everything they've experienced. Now here I am telling you tales about hidden beings with innocent hearts and ancient books of beneficent magic, and I see the same look in your eyes. Obviously, I've made my pitch to the wrong customer. I must be losing my touch.
Clearly. That pitch to the wrong customer line was far too heavy-handed. You're lucky you've built up so much credit with me. I'll take the vial, and good luck with the rest of this local delicacy. I started to leave, then paused. Oh, and you should know that when I spoke with Pines last night, he said there were some particularly acquisitive Agrabanians in town who nearly emptied his shelves. They may or may not have left by now.
Ah. Well, perhaps they can buy some creamed corn from me.
The peddler folded down the parasol over his cart and quickly began to stow jars inside.
If they hurry.
So a lot of this we have already touched on just in talking about why we like so much of the setting element. We've talked about the kind of adventures they can generate.
Which are both high and beyond compare.
And that the great thing is we're going to have in the write-up a chart of potential adventures, but you have all these things the Gummies are trying to do that are really easy to involve the PCs. So, like, they're searching for more lore. They're exploring the ruins. They're searching for stuff for the Great Gummis. They're decoding the book and learning new spells. Or you have the whole, they're, like, guarding their infrastructure. There's one episode where it's the whole, like, the water pump gets cracked. And so they need to go, like, explore the tunnels and follow it and find it and figure out how to repair it. And that's a whole adventure right there. You're just helping them repair their water pump. And speaking of the infrastructure, this is something we have barely even touched on, which is so D&D-able. But that's how D&D-able this is. We haven't even touched this yet. They're always setting traps. So the guys they're like tiny little bear people who are kind of peaceful. So that's one of their main ways of, like, protecting their secrets and protecting Gummy Glen is to set all these traps. So the sort of Gummy equivalent of one of the daily chores is to go check on the traps or to, like, devise new traps to set up. And my goodness, can you be more Dungeons and Dragons?
Traps are such a part of D&D, and one of the hardest things is figuring out how to use them in a way that's fun at the table. This has got to be one of the best ways where you have an adventure-prone location, right? Which is, like, where the headquarters is and where you've got all this stuff that enemies want to steal and all this. Like, you see this in the show. There are traps hidden everywhere, and they use those traps dynamically in combats. So, like, if somebody attacks the area, like, I mean, what could be better than a combat where you're, like, there with your NPC buddy and you're maybe, like, slightly overmatched by raiders coming to attack your base, but there are all these traps that your allies have set previously that you can lead the enemies into.
Oh, yeah.
And it's perfectly natural. Like, it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, oh, that's great.
And the neat thing is this whole idea of them guarding the secrets, as we've touched on, is such a cool core dilemma to put your PCs into. That they don't want people to have this knowledge, these secrets, these potential weapons. And that means there's a lot of situations where they're almost going to be secondary antagonists.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, these raiders are coming to attack. We know Shan Yu is coming, and you have a laser. And they don't want to give the laser to the PC, so suddenly that's like a thing they have to deal with. But they don't have the nice moral comfort of, like, well, they're bad, so we can beat them up and steal their laser.
Yeah.
And, like, your PCs are going to have to figure out how to, like, speak to them, because the Huns are coming to attack the castle and kill all these people. They're like, well, that's not our thing. That's not our problem.
Yeah.
Like, we have this thing we're doing. P.S. Those people are descendants of the people that ruined our civilization. So, like, we're not going to do anything to them, but that alone is not a persuasive argument to get us to give you our laser.
Yeah. Because once you get the laser, you're going to just turn around and use the laser on other people and be as bad as Shan Yu. Like, oh, that does sound like the kind of thing you would do. Okay.
We do.
One PC raised their hand like, I'm already as bad as Shan Yu.
Yeah, right. I mean, that could even be a fun thing, too. It's kind of a, like, if they convince them, then the PCs have to be like, okay, so are we returning the laser?
Yeah.
Like, we did promise we were going to return the laser, but now we have a laser.
Which can also be a communication device.
Right, yeah, maybe we'll use it for communicating.
There is a thing you get out of putting this theme into Ravenloft, which is, I think most of us have an understanding of fantasy stories where if we met a group of characters in a location, like with a whole backstory, where the theme is, like, do we believe there is hope in the world? I think 9 times out of 10, we're like, yeah, there definitely is. Like, the end of the story is we find out there is hope in the world. And Ravenloft actually makes that a question.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe the point of the Gummi Bears here is, like, the reason they are waiting here forever for things to get better is because things really are never going to get better. And should our actions be based on that? Like, should we acknowledge the fact that, like, it's never going to be a good time for someone to have power here? Or are we holding out hope? Because I think it's nice kind of that the Gummies are, like, so far in the past and so far away. Because even if you are thoroughly burned out by the setting, like maybe this is different.
And it might be that nice, like that rejection of the sort of humanoid general population. The idea that this is like the preserved little bit of innocence, the preserved little bit of hope, that like the gummies are not seeped in sin like all of Ravenloft is.
Yeah, it might be a good, like, even though they're very neutral and hands-off, that might really get under the skin of some of your players. Like, it might be kind of nice as a change of pace to be like, here are these unambiguously good, like, NPCs to just, like, be a palate cleanser after all these awful people you've been dealing with.
Yes.
Yeah, and like a good character telling you to give up is like a special thing to happen in a campaign. We're like when an unambiguously good NPC is like, I'd love to help, but honestly, give it up. Like, I know that you're a paladin, but things are never going to change.
Yeah. Ugh. That's a kick in the teeth, and I love it.
But you also have the potential for small victories. Like, that's kind of, I mentioned the point of the show, that like the show opens with their sort of at their lowest point, but then they are like climbing back. And even it even perfect, like you get a message and you don't have time to decode it, it's destroyed, but that little like spark of hope that like, no, they are out there. Or even just, you know what, we are discovering some of the lost secrets of our civilization. We are sort of restoring some of the glory of our civilization. That's these small victories that then can be that kind of little points of light in the very dark setting. And we talk about how we always love small positive status quo changes.
Yes.
Like, you can't defeat the Dark Lord, but here are ways you can make this domain an objectively better place than you found it. So a lot of this story, a lot of the most interesting version of this story is involving the PCs having a relationship with the Gummi Bears, kind of playing the role of Cavan, the boy, the squire, who's the sort of the main character of the show. And in the write-up, I'm going to have a modified version of kind of the reputation system that you have in the DMG. And I think it's very, you could make your own very easily. Just you have a reputation score with the Gummi Bears. And as you help them, as you keep their secrets, if you actually do return the laser, that's going to be like +3 reputation points. Yeah. And then having these kind of milestones of like, you know, when you hit reputation 5, they'll let you use the quick tunnels, like, with supervision. Or if you hit reputation 10, then, like, you know the entrance to Gummi Glen and you can just, you're like, welcome in. And then reputation, like, 15, you might even be like, you're basically a member of the clan. So we have this in the DMG, we've had this in 5e, and it's just a very, very simple way and easy to adapt to actually track that social status, and then what that means for your access to the Great Gummi lore, the magic, the tech, things like that. And that relationship, it could be with the Gummies as a collective, or it could be with specific Gummies.
I really like using a specific Gummi for this, and that's one of the few places where maybe we would, like, not at length, but like we would talk about the specific Gummi characters in this episode, because I think if you watch the show and the way that it works, it seems like generally when an outsider comes in, it's one of the Gummies in the Gummi Glen kind of clan vouching for them, kind of bringing them in at least initially, and then they may gain the trust of the others. And which face you put on that, who your contact is, shapes the role of the Gummies as a whole. And it also gives you a way as a DM to actually create a scene. Like, you know, if you imagine somehow you're playing with a D&D group in 2025 who's not intimately familiar with the Gummi Bears, then, like, if they show up and it's like, well, this is Grammy, and this is Zummy, and this is Tummi, and this is Sunny, and this is Cubby, like, that scene is a nightmare. Who are all these people?
Oh my goodness.
Whereas if you meet one Gummi Bear while you're out doing something, and like, this is a Gummi Bear meet cute, where it's like, we both got caught in like adjacent bear traps, and like we had to kill a couple of hours, and like we escaped together, and now we're friends. But like, then they introduce you to the rest of the Gummi Bears. Now you have a solid NPC with a definite personality who can mediate your connection to the rest of the group until you get to know them. And which bear that is really makes a big difference. So like, Gruffy is the most maybe cynical of the group.
Like the name indicates.
And so, yeah. And so if you've won over Gruffy, then that's going to carry a lot of weight with the rest of the group. But Gruffy might also be the one who's likely to kind of see everything you do in the worst light, right? He's inclined to think that the other types of sentient creatures can't be trusted. Whereas you could meet Cubby, who's like very young and adventurous and like wants to have fun, and that's a natural fit. But then like his opinion doesn't necessarily carry a lot of weight with the others, and you'd have to prove yourself to the adults because you've got this like very trusting child. But it's the way that you treat him and like showing up for the group over time that would make the rest of them, you know, understand you and like believe in you. So I would give a lot of thought to like, who is the contact character? Who do I want to actually feature as an NPC in the campaign versus like, you know, Tummi Gummi, like he's hungry a lot and that's cool for him.
He likes to eat, as the name implies.
He's voiced by Garfield.
Yes.
I love the idea that he like in the studio, it's Garfield at the microphone. Like it's 2 layers deep.
Yeah.
So, dear listener, I started this journey here on with a particular goal, and that was to show to you that this is not a weird April Fool's joke, that Disney's Gummi Bears cartoon actually is an excellent addition to a D&D setting, and even specifically a Ravenloft setting. And I think all of us here, I speak for all of us, we did our very best on that mission.
I mean, I think Aslan is going to be very interested in this gummy berry juice.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, of course, he has to know all about the Gummi Bears. Magic and mystery are part of their history.
Right, yes. Oh, man, it's going to be fun to get the Aslan
I
Gummi
cannot
Bear
wait
stuff.
to get the Aslan Gummi Bear stuff.
We don't have it as time of recording, and we are excited as you are. You're lucky you don't have to wait as long as we do to hear it. So, if you want to contact us to tell us about your Gummi Bear adventures, or to just give us a little tip of the hat and say, you know what, you did it. That's a cool setting. How could they contact us, Rachel?
Well, you can email us at wonderfulworldofdarklords@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Tumblr, or Patreon at Wonderful World of Darklords. And on Patreon, dropping today concurrently with this episode.
Yes, indeed.
If you've been sitting there giggling about Gummi Bears having high adventures, we've beaten you to it.
Yes, believe us, we were too.
There is a bonus episode for patrons. I should clarify here, recreational marijuana is legal in Maryland.
Yes.
The Wonderful World of Darklords does not condone illegal drug use. There is going to be an episode on our Patreon released at the same time as this one in which I take a gummy and field questions that have been asked by our patrons on Patreon and Discord.
This will be her first encounter with the questions.
Literally just today opened up the channel on our Discord for them as of time of recording. I have no idea what the questions are. Tom does. I'm excited. I cannot wait to field these Ravenloft questions stoned.
So if that can't convince you to support our Patreon, I don't know what will.
And you can also find us on YouTube at Wonderful World of Darklord, but I'm not going to be stoned there. So
Yeah, no, you will not. That's a Patreon exclusive.
yes. Chris, how about you? Where can our listeners find you if they want to hear more of your dulcet tones?
Well, my podcast is Mega Dumbcast. I am now on my 7th season as of the time this goes out, or very shortly thereafter. In August, the new season is dropping. That's season 7, and it is about the 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook. Every season of the podcast, I've gone through a role-playing game book, or sometimes more than one, page by page, identifying the dumbest thing on each and every single one. This season, I'm going for one of the looming books and games in RPG history, 3rd edition D&D, and it's going great so far. I have you, Rachel, booked for a bonus episode that we're recording later this week, which I think is going to be fantastic. It's just going to be the same as Mega Dumbcast always is, which is like every episode is the same, but every episode is different. They come out daily. They're short. Every one is about a page of the book. I identify the dumbest thing. And dumb can mean a lot of things over the course of 3rd edition D&D. There are a lot of pages. There are a lot of tables. There are a lot of pictures that definitely came from exactly the year 2000.
Yes.
So it's going to be a really good time. I'm having a ton of fun recording it. If you want to listen to that daily, you can go to megadumbcast.podbean.com to find daily episodes for free. If you want to binge the episodes or all the back episodes of the show, where I've talked about many Palladium role-playing games like Heroes Unlimited and Ninjas and Super Spies. I've talked about Secrets of Shadowloo, the supplement for the Street Fighter role-playing game. Last season was all about World of Darkness games. You can go to patreon.com/megadumbcast, where you can find megasodes, which are compilations that compile all of a week's episodes into one big chunk, along with tons of bonus material, a whole side series whose name I can't say on this family-friendly podcast, but it's about Vampire the Masquerade, and it's good. you can listen to all kinds of bonus stuff. Oh, I had you two on for a bonus episode about Beyond the Supernatural.
Yes.
Where
Yes,
there was a suggestion in that book of, I think, how many ridiculous people did they say were in like a party?
I want to say 26, yeah.
A 26-person adventuring party. So sure enough, we did create, sketchily, a 26-character adventuring party for Beyond the Supernatural using names generated by Scrivener.
Yes, which is...
There's so much...
Scrivener generates some amazing names.
It sure does.
Yeah. There's so much stuff that I love and have forgotten about on my Patreon. So sometimes I just go back and listen to it and like enjoy all of my brilliant friends who I've had on various episodes. So yeah, that's patreon.com/megadumbcast. And you can get access to all that stuff for just about $1 a month. And then there's some weird stuff you can get for $3 a month, but we can't talk about that here. But yeah, definitely this season, this is a great place to jump on the show, especially if you're a D&D fan. So yeah, if you are on the fence, go to just the Podbean page, megadumbcast.podbean.com, and check out an episode and see if you like it.
I am so excited for this season because my thoughts on 3rd edition are a matter of public record. It is my preferred edition, but man, it's dumb. So
Yes.
I am looking forward to it getting the MDC treatment.
So, Kris, thank you as always for joining us. Thank you for
much.
suggesting Gummi Bears,
Yes.
because, boy howdy, this turned out to be a very rich vein to mine of potential D&D and Ravenloft stuff.
We never would have thought of this on our own. Thank
you so much for having me. I appreciate you going along with my weird ideas. I know when I suggested Peddler's Tales, you would not have anticipated the episodes that we've done so far.
Indeed. But hey, we've discovered we've made the real Peddler's Tales of the friends we've made along the way. Until next time, thank you for listening, and happy gaming.
Although Eldritch Sight assured me that the potion was, in fact, imbued with transmutation magic, I could not shake the question of whether the peddler had simply sold me a vial of grape juice. So when I was on the outskirts of town, I took a small sip. I spent the next minute or so in the forest surrounding Gravity Falls, ricocheting off the trees. If two of them were close enough together and my angle was correct, I could carry them between them all the way to the top and then down again. I have no idea of what other applications the gummy berry juice might have, Yensid, but I can at least assure you that I am sending you an extremely entertaining way to spend an afternoon. Regards, D.
Fascinating. This nameless peddler of yours has quite the variety of rare items in his continually changing stock. As I understand it, gummy bears do not entrust their secrets to just anyone. Yet my diligent study and research into the potion you have provided reveals that it is indeed a genuine sample of gummy berry juice. There must be more to this peddler than his rather eccentric persona implies. There were rumors the gummy bears once dwelled in the Forest of Shadows of Darkon. I suspect they still do at times. However, the secret tunnel system they utilize, combined with the speed and strength of the gummy berry juice, they are nearly impossible to locate. After all, it is difficult to sneak up on a society that excels at bouncing here, there, and everywhere throughout the domains of dread.
This has been The Wonderful World of Darklords. We have no affiliation with Disney or Wizards of the Coast. All music recordings used in this episode are in the public domain and were obtained through museopen.org. Titles and links are in the show notes. Dialogue for Yensid was written by Azalin Rex himself, who you can follow on Tumblr at Darklord Azalin. The Wonderful World of Darklords logo was designed by Haylight Jones. You can find links to their work in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show, you can find us on patreon.com or find our tip jar on Red Circle. Thanks for listening.
Why don't you do this, Bix? This was you, I think.
Oh, yeah. The Vistani, yes, that was me.
Yeah. Classic Rachel.